Hello and welcome to the very first of a new football podcast called Under the Floodlights. My name is Ryan Stillwell. I'm a Portsmouth fan. I'm joined by Craig Lucott, a Carlisle fan. I'm also joined by Nick Upton, who is chiefly a Boston United fan with interest in Nottingham Forest. Jake Walton, who's chiefly a Scunthorpe fan who also has interest with Leeds. And Tim Scales, who has a team of the week. This new podcast is going to be aimed at football anywhere and everything. We're not just going to talk about the Premier League. We're not even going to talk about only the British Isles. We're going to bring you stories, opinions from all over the world, but mainly from the British Isles. And because we've got fans in the Premier League and all the way down in non-league football, you can be sure that we'd like to have a clue what we're on about. And so that's what this podcast is going to be, 1 hour every single week. And I was going to start with the topic of Fulham, but I just want to throw in the story of SD Eibar, the tiny town of 27,000 people in the Basque region of Spain and a stadium of 6,000 fans. 2 years ago, playing in the third flight of Spanish football, no debt, but then again, no Asian or Saudi billionaire, but through hard work and just good football, they played their first ever La Liga game tonight, and amazingly, they beat Real Sociedad, who were playing in Champions League last year, 1-0. Now, to get into La Liga, when you get promoted from the second tier, you need to pay a registration fee of 1.7 million euros. And this is how small Eibar as a club are. They couldn't stump up the money. So they had a charity fundraiser. People from all over the world bought shares in Eibar. And this story got so big that Eibar beat that target. And now this tiny mountain crested town is playing La Liga football and has won 1-0. And check out their goal on YouTube. It's an absolute belter. So that's the story of SD Eibar. And for a slightly more sad story, earlier this weekend, a Cameroonian striker by the name of Albert Bosse died after his side lost 2-1 at home to their opponents USM Alger. The home fans threw rocks onto the pitch, and one of these rocks hit Albert Bosse on the head. He was taken to hospital where he later died of his wounds, reports say, and it's probably the only player the player you least want to hit, because he was actually the top goal scorer in the Algerian league last year, and he's now sadly no longer part of the team. So I think the worst thing about that is it was his own fans who did that. So rest in peace to him and condolences to his friends and family. But let's.
That, by the way, is there actually an investigation into that?
Yes, the Algerian Football Association has put an investigation into it, and Issa Hayatou, the Algerian president for the Federation of Football, said that African football can't be the breeding ground for hooliganism. So they're definitely taking this seriously, and there's going to be a thorough investigation. Hopefully they'll find the person responsible, and hopefully there'll be a ban for the home fans. But let's move it on now. Let's get on to a topic of discussion with me, Nick, Jake, Tim and Craig. Something that's been starting off the football season in one of the more controversial manners in terms of on-the-field performance is Fulham, relegated from the Premier League last year. Quite a few fans have said that Felix Magath could have done something with that team. Yet, after 4 games, they are rock bottom. They have not done anything to inspire anyone right now. And they lost 5-1 at the weekend to Derby County. So let's bring it in. I'm going to start off with Craig Lucott, seeing as he's on the left of my screen. Craig, what's going on?
I have no idea, to be honest. I mean, I think Fulham's problems in general probably stemmed from last season once they sacked Martin Jol, I feel, because it's been completely downhill from there. And Felix Magath, I'm not sure what he's doing, because some of the players that he's leaving out of the squad are good. Probably some of them are Premier League quality players, such as Hugo Rodallega, who isn't actually starting most of the games from what I am aware of. And he has also completely seemed to omit Kostas Mitroglou, who obviously Fulham signed for £12 million last season, and obviously he played 3 games. He didn't score any goals, and McGath has questioned his fitness and questioned the reason why Fulham signed him. And apparently Mitroglou will never play for Fulham again, from what I can understand. And the football they've been playing has just not been good enough. I mean, they've been they were played off the park by Derby, and I mean, I don't know what to say really. They're on a really big downward slope, and I think if they want to actually revive themselves, they probably need to get rid of McGath as soon as possible, because his team selections are baffling. If I remember correctly, I think 7 or 8 players in the Fulham squad against Derby were actually under the age of 21, so they have no experience. And again, as I say, some of the best players have been left out of the squad continuously, so I'm really questioning his motives right now. So I don't know what to say really.
Well, the next question I'm going to throw to the rest of the group, but I've just noticed on the championship table, the only other team without a point is Blackpool. And if you think of the start of the season Blackpool had, I think it was 6 days before their first game, they had 8 senior players and no goalkeeper. So it's understandable that they would be doing bad. But
I think
Fulham are worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of weighs it up, really. If you consider how badly, well, Blackpool's plight before the season actually started, you look at how bad their situation was, and Fulham aren't in any better position, really, with a much better squad. The thing is that, like Craig just touched on with team selection, I was listening to the game against Wolves the other night that they had. They brought on, who was it they brought on in the second half? It was one of the front men, I can't remember which one it was.
Was this from Mark Fotheringham or...?
No, but I'm going to touch on Fotheringham in a minute.
Yeah.
The fact that they had McCormack on and decided to play him wide left, their £11 million signing him, put wide left,
What?
and he's not winger. And against Wolves, when you consider the kind of high that Wolves are on, you should have all your players in the correct positions, in the correct roles to do what they do best. And if you put your £11 million striker wide left, what is that all about? And about Mark Fotheringham, you talk about a player there who was in a struggling Notts County side last season, who didn't really create anything positive anyway. He didn't emanate any positive vibes throughout their squad. How's he ended up at Fulham?
I don't
understand
that transition? When he was with us at Norwich, he was fucking dreadful. I think he's probably the worst player that I've seen in a Norwich shirt. Well, one of the worst players that I've seen in a Norwich shirt. And somehow he managed to become captain here. But that was 5 years ago, and even Notts County fans were saying he was terrible. I just don't see why they've signed him.
It's a very weird move.
Looking down their team sheet, like, other than Hoogland, who was at Schalke, Scott Parker, and Mark Fotheringham, Ross McCormack, I don't really know much about any of them. I mean, I've heard of Corey Woodrow, and there's one, and I suppose I've heard of Patrick Roberts, but there's not really any you can't just take on the championship with a bunch of kids. It's going to get ripped to shreds.
Oh, of course not. I mean, it's an honourable attempt to play that many under-21 players in your squad, but the fact is, in 4 games, Fulham have scored twice, and one of those happened to be a moment of brilliance from Scott Parker at the weekend, and they've conceded 9 goals. Joint top in the championship for conceding, and joint bottom for scoring goals. Even Blackpool have conceded less goals than that, and they didn't have a goalkeeper a week before the season started. And I don't know if anyone else who's listening to this watched the Football League show, but they conceded 2 goals in, 10 seconds? Straight from kickoff.
Yeah.
That one from the kickoff was just fucking hilarious.
He's run right through the middle, and it's 5-1. It's absolutely baffling what is going on there.
And also from Felix Magath's time in Germany, what a lot of people say about him is that he's a tyrant and a hard work master. And he's got a bunch of under-21s kids, and you can't really expect them to be up for that.
The thing is, when you're playing younger players as well, you need to still encourage them to actually play football rather than, teach them hard graft straight away. Of course, it's a firm basis for success. Like, you have to have hard-working players, but they should still be enjoying their football and just, get down and playing. Not being told by fucking Marshall, like, come on, get on your bike, get up and down, up and down. It's ridiculous.
Well, you talk about the player who's been hyped a lot. It's obviously their front man, the £11 million Ross McCormack. Now, signing for a new club is a very strenuous process. There is a lot to go through. There's tests, paperwork, the whole lot. There's moving place. So how come Fulham have found it justifiable to spend £11 million on a player for the manager to turn around and say, why aren't you fit? Why aren't you able to play 90 minutes? Why did I have to take you off 66 minutes into the first game because you were out of breath and you produced nothing? Isn't there a medical for this sort of thing?
The thing is, he looked really down as well in the Wolves game. He looked completely devoid of all confidence.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, you've got to put down to man management and McGat by the sounds of it.
Well, two of the guys in this podcast had their teams either get promoted or relegated last year. So I'm going to throw this one to Craig, the Carlisle fan, who unfortunately got relegated, and Jake, who's a Scunthorpe fan. So to you two guys, obviously, when you're preparing for a new season and it's a different league you're in, you've got to be looking for players that are going to be up for that new league. Depends whether it's above them, below them. What do you think is the main characteristic that you look for in a player when they're going to sign for your club? Because it's not just, can he kick a ball well enough? Can he clear a ball well enough? So to you two guys, what do you reckon that puts it above anything else when preparing for life in a new league?
Right, well, obviously with McCormack, you've got a 30-goal striker a season almost, because if you look at his last year with Leeds, what was it, he had about 29 goals, and he single-handedly carried Leeds to safety in what was a pretty dreadful year. But, I remember I was reading an article on Yorkshire Evening Post with Cellino about Leeds, and he said that he wanted, he just said, as a benchmark, I want about 10 million for McCormack, not thinking that he'd get it, but Fulham offered 11 million. I've got close ties to Leeds, and I'm in quite a Leeds group on Facebook, and I was just looking, and everyone was saying you've got to get rid of him, get rid of a Championship standard player for 11 million. You can rebuild a team for that almost, and obviously it's not worked out for Leeds this year, but still 11 million for a good goal scorer. But when I saw him, he's not a brilliant player. He's just a goal scorer. That's it. And if you don't score the goals, you don't really bring anything else to the team for me. And he hasn't scored the goals for Fulham so far, so he's not really bringing it. And 11 million for that, it's just bang out of order for Championship anyway.
And not only that, I'm looking down his goal scoring record at Leeds, and he only had 2 seasons where he got above double figures, which is, he had 4 seasons there, and he scored 18 in 45 in 2011-12, and then obviously last season he scored 28 in 43. And I just do sort of think that sometimes players have, he seems to be the sort of player that has one good season and then he's, slips away. Don't know what it is.
I think that Becchio carried him for a couple of seasons before Norwich bought him, and when Becchio went, he had to step up to the plate, and to be fair to him, he did do that really well, but like I said before, 11 million, you can't turn that down for a Championship player at all.
I have to agree with that. And Craig, your team is now down in League 2, like my team, Portsmouth, and Carlisle are a bit notorious for struggling to sign players. So Fulham got their hands on one of the best players in the Championship last year. He was probably looking to go to the Premier League, but the fact is he's at a club that have ambitions to go up. He's only been out of football for the summer period. How can you go from topping the Championship in terms of scoring to the way his season started now?
I am not sure, really. He's been at Fulham for quite a while. He was there for quite a while before the season even started. So you wonder why this fitness problem wasn't picked up before the season actually started. Why is McGath just now bringing it up now? And obviously, we're moving to a new team. You don't necessarily know that this new team will play the same sort of system as your old team. So this player might not fit into the system, and I don't know if this is the case. But obviously, if you're gonna, just for example, if you want to play with a target man, you're going to want to sign someone like Mario Mandzukic, and you don't want to sign Jermaine Defoe. It's purely signing players for the roles, and I think obviously you touched on the whole signing certain types of players for this new league that you're in. I think the manager surely has to have a good idea of what sort of system he wants to play going into the new season, and he has to surely base his transfers off that system. He has to sign the players that will fit into his tactics. And I know I'm bringing Carlo into this, but Graham Kavanagh, our manager, has stated that the system that he's playing right now worked 3 or 4 years ago because we had the players at the time to play that system. So it makes you wonder, why the players that would suit this system were not signed. We've signed different sorts of players, and we're trying to sort of stick them into a foreign system with a barge pole. It's like sticking square pegs into round holes, as they say. So I don't know what's happened with McCormack. I mean, as Nick said, he seemed just really down and bereft of confidence, and he's apparently struggling with fitness. I don't know what's gone wrong with him, really.
Well, I have to tell you, that is a brilliant link up to the next topic, talking about player roles and signing players, because down in League 2, Morecambe, who weren't promoted or relegated, they had a sort of an average season last year in League 2, were favourites to go down this year. And some fans were sort of underwhelmed by their activity in the summer. Yet, 4 games in, top of the table, the only team in League 2 to get 100%. In 4 games, they've scored 9 goals, and they've only conceded 3 times. So a team favourite to go down is 23 positions above where they're supposed to be, effectively, because they were tipped to go bottom. And so players that supposedly aren't good enough are definitely performing their duties that they're slated to be doing in the formation, because they've been playing teams off the park. They got 12 out of 12 so far. And I believe, was it you, Nick, that said you had a point about teams who are currently defying the odds and teams where they're just getting the job done?
Well, not currently, but up until last season, Vauxhall Motors kind of overachieved. I know we are talking still within a non-league kind of realms, but they're no, really, if they were to admit it, they're no bigger than a kind of Northern Premier League side. But they were completely well above their standard playing in the Conference North. I mean, they stuck around there since 2000. They've been there for 10 years, just about, just punching above their weight. I mean, they've never come. I don't believe they've actually come in the top half of the table, but they had absolutely no budget whatsoever, absolutely nothing. So it is a kind of very similar situation to Morecambe. Obviously, Morecambe have had
they don't exactly have a high roller in charge.
Yeah, exactly. So Morecambe is more of an extreme case of Vauxhall in a way. But yeah, it's just another real club to throw into the hat, I guess. Sadly,
of course.
Sadly, Vauxhall have been demoted to the West Cheshire League now, because of their financial problem and their struggles to kind of stick in the kind of Conference North area. But it's still something that's worth noting, I think.
Well, to the rest of the group is what I'm going to throw this one. Obviously, it's only early in the season, but to be doing that well, 4 wins out of 4, the best in the league, only team to win all 4 games, it does raise the question, what is the key for that? Because you spend all summer getting players fit, signing the players you need, working in formations, things like that. So what are Morecambe up to that makes them that confident start the season? Is it just words from the manager, or have they just found the right system for every team? And I'm going to throw that to the rest of the group, and one of you can jump in.
I went to watch my team, Scunny, play Morecambe last year, away from home at Morecambe, obviously. And when you're watching them, they're a very physical side. I don't know what the word to describe it. It's kind of a down to earth. They know the limits, and they know what they're good at. They know what they're not. And League Two, obviously, it's not the greatest technical wise, but it's very good. You've got to be a physical side to compete in that league, and I reckon that Morecambe are one of the best at being a physical side, but they're not bad at being technical either. You've got teams that are renowned for being physical, but they're not very good technical, which is why they struggle a little bit. Whereas Morecambe, what I saw from them last year anyway, they was a very good technical side away from home. And the second half especially, we drew 1-1 in that game. But like I said, the second half especially, they absolutely dominated us, and we was actually really lucky to come away with a point. So to me, they don't really come as a shock that they're doing well. Also, because they've had Jim Bentley as manager for quite a couple of years, so they've had time to get used to his philosophy and how to manage a team, what he wants from his team. And I reckon it's all sticking together. And I reckon this year they could actually come close to getting a playoff position if they buy into the manager's philosophy quite a bit.
Well, if you look at the results so far, I mean, they've played two teams that aren't expected to make miracles this season. They've already played Oxford, who are bottom of the league without a point. They beat them 1-0. They've played Cambridge, who aren't expected to do much. But being a Portsmouth fan, I saw Cambridge come to Fratton Park, and despite the fact we had 10 men for the second half, Cambridge still played some good football. They still played within 10. And obviously on the opening day, they've gone and beat Plymouth in their return to the Football League.
And you can't knock Cambridge. They've got a very good squad, actually.
Oh, yeah. But a lot of people were tipping them to go down. And just like Morecambe, and certainly from what I've seen, I think they'll be all right this year. And Morecambe's other victories came... what am I on about? Morecambe's other victories came away at Dagenham Redbridge and at home to Newport, 3-2. And neither of those two sides are exactly in danger this year. So when it comes down to it, people might say, well, these sides aren't one going to be going up to League One. But the fact is, you've got to win these games. You've got to get the performance right. And they scored 3 goals against Dagenham, 3 against Newport, and 2 away at Cambridge. So have they just got a secret master plan that no one else knows about? Or is it just players linking up well? Have they just formed a good bond over the summer?
Well, a lot can be said for continuity. Like as you said before, like Jim Bentley's been in charge for quite a while. I think maybe he knows exactly what this league is about now, and Morecambe have been in there for quite a while. And just if they're signing the right players, I've lost my thread.
This is a very well-constructed point.
Yeah, I know. I lost my thread, and I said I lost my thread.
Right, well, throw it to someone else. Craig, you've been silent for a minute. Craig seems to be very silent now. He's
sorry. I apologise.
Oh, he is here. I thought you were doing an Amy Winehouse impression.
This is all growing pains, by the way, this whole podcasting. There will be mistakes.
Of course, yeah. But we'll iron them out. And I think you're actually suitable for this because you come into this league relegated and you were tipped to not maybe smash the league, but certainly be up there. And Carlisle has to be said, bad start. So where does it lie between you and Morecambe? What's the key difference?
I personally would say that the key difference is definitely probably the bonding between the players. Obviously, Carlisle have made a lot of signings over the summer period, and they've let a lot of players go. Obviously, Morecambe have made they haven't made that many blockbuster signings. I think Jamie Devitt was probably quite useful, the most useful acquisition in my opinion. But I think I just have to echo the points of everyone else. I mean, the continuity of having Jim Bentley in charge for a long period of time. It's proven generally in the past that having a manager for a longer period of time always helps, and it prevents any more. It prevents having to go through more periods of gelling, if you know what I mean. I can't find the right word, but obviously Bentley has a good idea of what sort of football he wants to play, and he's been there for a while. So obviously he has had the power to mould the squad to what he sees fit. And I think obviously right now it's looking like that all of his work is coming to fruition. Whether it will continue throughout the whole season, you don't know, because it always seems to be a tendency when in the Football League that there's always one or two teams who will have a major collapse in the second half of the season at some point, and some teams will have a resurgence. So I don't know if Morecambe will do that. I mean, I do like Morecambe as a club, so I hope they do well. But yeah, I think the main thing is just the continuity and having a good idea of what system that you want to play, and I think Bentley's done that very well.
So do you guys think this is sort of a valid reason as to why managers get a lot more slack than players do, and why they're the first out the door if things go wrong? Because looking at Morecambe, it would appear to be that if the manager knows what he's up to and he can get everything and everyone he wants into a system that works, do you think that's the reason why managers are so short-lived now and there's a revolving door policy?
Well, it is kind of, a results business, isn't it? And managers need to, I personally think they need to know the league that they're managing in. Jim Bentley, as an example, he knows League Two in and out. He's been in League Two as a manager for probably about 3 or 4 years now. He's managed against most of the teams. I'd probably at least 2 times. And even before he was the manager, he was actually a player at Morecambe, so he got to know how teams played, how they'd play against Morecambe, for example. And you just take that experience on as a manager, and you just use it against different teams. And I personally think that some managers, they're too unwilling to change their philosophy against different teams that they're playing against, and it costs them dear. Because in football nowadays, it is a cutthroat business. You need to chop and change against different teams, different tactics whatsoever. And if you can't adapt to it, then you're not really made out for the game anymore, I don't think.
Well, it does certainly seem to be that Morecambe are the most adaptive side in probably the Football League right now, considering how many surprises they're causing. So they've developed promise. Now I want to talk about a team that, how shall I put it? They bought promise. They are the Manchester City of the Football League, and I think everyone knows what I'm going to refer to. I'm just going to say the word Fleetwood, and someone jump in on that.
Nick.
Come on. I know you're not. I know none of you are fans of Fleetwood, so come on, give me a best shot. Describe to me in no uncertain terms why they are not ashamed of football, because the fans themselves can't really help what happens at that football club, but the entity of it.
Well, look, a few years ago, they were at, well, as you know, I worked for Carlton Town as a scout. I actually had a look into this because I was curious of just how tin pot Fleetwood really were. I had a look into their fairly recent history with regards to how their rise came about. Carlton were actually at the Eastern equivalent of their level in 2006-2007, which is when it really started to kick in for them. They got promoted eventually from the Northern Premier League in 2008, but in 2006-07 was when it really started kicking into motion. They started to build towards it. Granted, they didn't have immediate success. It did take them a couple of seasons to get going. But when you consider how far they've kind of flown up, we were watching, anyone who watched the Football League show recently would have heard that the chairman's ploughed 15 million in so far. I also heard on the show that they described that as a brilliant story. I'm not having that. You could give 15 million to Glasshort and Welfare and they could achieve exactly what Fleetwood have done. I genuinely despise them personally. I'm just going to throw that to someone else to see what they think as well.
It's hard not to despise a club like that, really, isn't it? A club that just throws money at players to come to the team and basically, like you say, buys the way through all the leagues. You can't. There's nothing likeable about it. They've bought fans along the way, because I think I might be a bit wrong here, and someone can correct me if I am. But when there was in Carlton League, there was about 80 fans in the ground.
Yeah, I believe you are right in saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I say now,
which is actually less than what Carlton get at home as well now.
And also when they showed it on the Football League show, they only had that little grandstand, was like, the one that behind the main stand, isn't it?
Yeah, the one tucked in the corner. Yeah, shameful. But yeah, carry on, Jake.
Like I say, I think now they're reaching 4,000 fans, and it's just to show if you buy your way success, then people are going to follow. And I can't see the chairman stopping ploughing any money in soon. I just hope that now they've pretty much found the level, and they kind of do a Crawley, reach mid-table obscurity, and then become favourites for relegation.
I mean, the worrying thing is that they're not actually the first or the last club to be going like that. There's so many different clubs. I've even got one in my league now, and as everyone knows how much I dislike Spalding United. There's so many of them, though. You go from Spalding, you can go up to... I mean, the Northern Premier Division, generally pretty sound with regards to finances. Conference North, you've got your fair share. You've got North Ferriby, Brackley have lost their money now, which is fucking brilliant, to be honest. So that's that gone.
The fucking's meant
I'm
to
not
be
sure
implied,
what the state of the South is like. I'm not sure.
Haven't Barrow been bought out by millionaires?
Barrow as well. Barrow are
Barrow,
genuinely-
yeah.
It brought me so much fucking pleasure beating them on opening day, I can't even describe. But apart from that, the South, I don't know if any of the Southern lot on there can give me some more information on the South at all.
In terms of the Conference South, certainly around my area, Portsmouth, there aren't many there are no teams that have been bought out. I'd say the closest that there was to such an eventuality was Salisbury when they had the Saudi Prince come in. But anyone who follows the news in the football conference, they sort of that really backfired on them because they ended up getting kicked out of the league. Apart from that, none of the clubs round here
I mean, if you
have
want
got that money.
If you want
Eastleigh?
to kind of Eastleigh, yes, good point. I forgot about Eastleigh. Rushden, obviously, a few years ago. No, they're not proper South, but I mean, they're the kind of blueprint for that kind of plan. I think one of those clubs who went straight down the shitter as soon as somebody took their money back out again. Kettering went through a similar thing as well. There's plenty of clubs that have done it, but it just seems as if they just don't want to learn from every other team's mistakes.
I'm a big believer that part of the club is made by the area. I'm talking about the infrastructure. I'm talking about the workforce, the people of a place. And if you take what Fleetwood is, it's a fishing village that is effectively a tram stop on the Blackpool tram line.
It doesn't even have a train station.
No, it doesn't. It's just a tram stop. And it's got a really odd smell. I've been there. There is an odd smell. It's a tiny fishing village, not much more. I would apologise to Fleetwood fans, but you know it to be true.
I wouldn't.
And where I'm from, Portsmouth, again, with the maritime tradition, Fleetwood are a fishing village with a bad smell. Portsmouth is the home of the Royal Navy. Now, I like to think that an area makes a football club and helps it grow. This certainly was the case for my Portsmouth because we fans now own the club. We are the lifeblood of it. And it really pains me to see that a fishing village with a funky smell is in a league higher than a city that is in a club that also shares its town with the home of the Royal Navy, the defence of this nation. And it's upsetting to see that you no longer need the area as some sort of influence as to play for that club. All you need is some guy who comes in and chucks money at it. And plenty of other clubs have gone like the way of Portsmouth. You've got Rangers, Hearts, Chester, Gretna, Leeds. All these clubs have been hurt by money. And then Fleetwood, without deserving. So you can't say back in 2006, whenever it was, the fans deserved to be in the Football League or the club deserved to be in the Football League because hard graft gets you where you are. Fleetwood haven't grafted.
No, not at all.
The worrying thing is that obviously, I mean, I'm just looking at the table right now. Fleetwood are top, which obviously we're only 4 games in, but that's worrying. And I've just looked at the last game, which it was a 0-0 draw against Chesterfield. The first points they have dropped this season, actually, and their attendance was 3,512. Now, if they are gonna possibly go up to the Championship, which I sincerely hope they don't. Again, no offence to all their lifelong fans, not your fault, but they surely cannot sustain that sort of thing if they're going to have attendances like that. I mean,
Well,
Carlisle's attendances have dipped amazingly over
made,
the years, and we're still getting more than they do. You know.
Well, I'm sort of wondering if Blackpool get relegated, if quite a few people will just go, you know what, Fleetwood are just down the road, which is just horrible.
Well,
It's
that's
like,
a similar situation to what Carlisle and Celtic Nation were like, wasn't it? I think Craig will probably be able to shed some light on that, because you've been around people who've said that Celtic Nation show ambition. They don't anymore because they've fucked it, which is brilliant as well. But
Blackpool and Fleetwood are almost polar opposites, because Carl Oyston, even though he's an inept chairman, he did do one thing right, which was he didn't overspend. In the Premier League, he had the policy of no player gets paid more than 10 grand a week. And they almost made it. It was only Man United on the last day, reason why they went down. Back in 2002, Bloomfield Road had a car park where the Jimmy Armfield stand is. It was a two-stand stadium, nothing more than that. Now it's a complete stadium. The club was stable, certainly in its Premier League days. If fairness, only had one season, but all they needed was a bit more luck against Man United. They'd have had season number 2 in the Premier League. So obviously now it's a bit different because Carl Oyston's been a bit too stingy with his money. But Blackpool proved you can get from A to B without overspending. And then their neighbours, about a 10-minute tram ride up the road. You go past Blackpool Tower, get a lovely view of the ocean if you're ever in Blackpool. Normally drunk, but we'll skip that. You know, the polar opposites. You don't need money to get somewhere. But obviously in Fleetwood's case, it really does help. And oh, how we really fucking hate that. Listeners to this podcast, I'm shaking my head vigorously right now because you might call me bitter because I'm a Portsmouth fan and we had our problems with money, but how many people say the same about Man City spunking money or Chelsea spunking money? No. Fleetwood are one of those clubs. They are. And Craig said about the true fans, obviously we don't want to annoy them because they are true fans, but the problem is there's only 80 of them. You know, you could have them around my house for a party. I'll pay for the taxis. But that was our rant about Fleetwood. And I did mention the Premier League just then, and we are now going to move on to the Premier League. So everyone who has no idea, yeah, exactly. And so everyone who's never heard of Fleetwood or Morecambe or Carlisle or anything below the Championship, this is now your time. But disclaimer at the front of the podcast, we can skip to, I believe, what is about half an hour or 40 minutes into this podcast. So ready up, all the Premier League fangirls, because this one's for you. Louis van Gaal and his return, well, I say return, his entrance into the Premier League with Man United, the hopefully long-serving manager, because I think he's a good guy. He's been there, he's done that, he's won this, and he's won that. All of a sudden at Man United, things are going wrong. They had a terrible time with David Moyes as manager, and they've started even worse under Louis van Gaal. So I'm going to throw this question to the group. We saw what happened with David Moyes last year. How long before Louis van Gaal has cause to be sacked from a lot of Twitter United fans or Facebook United fans?
Unfortunately,
that was happening today. Literally.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how serious they were, but it's just so mad that people are saying that he should go or Van Gaal's rubbish. But it's like I sarcastically tweeted out that Van Gaal was being deemed a tactical genius and he's got 1 point from 2 games. But by the same token, he's got a fucking woeful squad. For a Man United squad, that is just dreadful, right? There's no quality in midfield. There's no quality at the back. I mean, other than Mata, Di Maria, and he's going to come, obviously, and Rooney and Van Persie, I don't think there's anybody that I'd say are that much better than what, say, Southampton had last year.
That's the thing. If you're a Chelsea, Man City, or an Arsenal, you're not going to look at that team and think, "Oh, I'm worried about that."
No.
As you did a couple of seasons ago or whatever. You're not going to look at that and think, "Right, I don't know how we're going to deal with that." You look at our defence; it's frail. It's seriously frail.
Yeah,
if you play Tyler Blackett as part of a back three, I mean, as a back four, you can probably cover him at left back by a more experienced player. But when he's playing centrally, He's not got much cover there.
Well, you talk about transfers and why are so many players who are, rumoured to come to Man United, and we obviously know not to trust rumours all that much, but a lot of players were strongly linked with Man United not joining. It can't be Van Gaal. He's managed at Ajax, won the league, won the cup, won the Champions League. He's managed at Barcelona, won the league, won the cup and the UEFA Super Cup. He managed at AZ Alkmaar, won the league, Bayern Munich, the league, the cup, runner-up Champions League. Also got Holland to third place in the World Cup. So he knows what he's doing because he's done it in several different countries. Why are people or players not joining Man United? It surely can't be his fault.
Well, I think it's because they're probably aiming too high with what sort of player they're trying to attract. When they're trying to attract Tony Kroos and who else have they tried to attract? I know they're going to sign Di Maria, but there's been like one or two players that you just think, no, they're not going to get a hand on him because they just need to lower their ambitions because they've got no European football to attract players with. I mean, other than the 75,000 seat stadium, which I admit is impressive, there isn't that many things that you'd go, oh yeah, Man United, perfect move for me.
Yeah.
I'd like to, talk about United in general as a Leeds fan, and quite like my family from Sunderland. I fucking despise United. They're my most hated team of all time, and for me, it was absolutely fucking brilliant to see Sunderland take a point off them, and it wasn't an undeserved point. I think for the first half, Sunderland were unlucky to actually go behind and deserved the win. And it's what you see in the after Fergie effect. That most of the players they can't adapt to a new manager, and it happened with Moyes, and you got Moyes sacked pretty undeservedly, in my opinion, because the players thought they were more big shot than what they actually are. And I think it might happen with Van Gaal unless he can actually properly manage the players. If they don't buy into his philosophy like they did with Fergus, then they're not going to play to the potential. And I think I can actually see another maybe a little bit better than what Moyes did, because I reckon Van Gaal's a better manager. But I can see a fifth at top position for United this year unless they really, really strengthen their team and buy players who are actually going to buy into Van Gaal's philosophy of football.
Well, I didn't watch the game today. I was too busy watching the Dutch football on Sky Sports 5. But I saw something, I believe it was from Opta Sports. It was a combined heat map of where United's front men had lined up. I believe their front line today was Rooney and Van Persie. And they'd only connected once in the Sunderland penalty box. And, the team may not be as great as it once was, but there's got to be more to it than that. The team's not that bad, and I'm not doing this to insult Sunderland fans, but they can't connect in the penalty box more than once. You're a Premier League side with great tradition. Surely you can stump up something a little better than that.
It's got to come down to the players in all, because most of the players were playing under Fergie, and it was up front. I think it was Van Persie and Rooney. I didn't see the lineups, but on their day they are world class players, and it don't matter what manager you've got in charge. You know how to link up if you've been playing for 2 or 3 seasons like they have. So it does come down to the players. I really don't think that they're putting enough effort in for the manager. They're not trying the hardest. But as a footballer for Man United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, it's inexcusable when you think about it.
Well, because...
Sorry, go on, Ryan.
Well, I'm just going to quickly say that it can't be Van Gaal because you look at what he's won. He's managed players in different circumstances at club level, at international level, domestic level, and when it comes to European club competition. He's been there, he's won it. So obviously he knows how to manage, and at big clubs, because he's managed some clubs. You guys may have heard of Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Pretty big teams. Also Holland in the World Cup. Didn't play great, but still made it to third. He knows how to manage. He knows how to play different systems and use different footballing cultures. So I've got to agree with Jake. It's certainly the players. It can't be him. But you go on, Nick.
I genuinely don't think that we'll see Van Gaal leave this season, no matter how I don't want to say no matter how badly they do, but even if he doesn't really finish much higher than what Moyes did before he left, I don't think we'll see him leave. Simply because when you think about it, United were like the blueprint for stability, weren't they? I mean, they had Fergie for absolute donkey's years, and all of a sudden to lose 2 managers in quick succession, I just can't see it. I think it'd just be too embarrassing for them. If you make 2 different acquisitions on the management front in 2 seasons, you know you're starting to look just like the other club, and that's not how United see themselves.
Oh yeah, they want to see themselves as apart from that, and as they should, because they've had 2 decades of nothing but the best. They may have not won everything every season, but they've always been up there fighting for it. So, and it's sad to see that Van Gaal's the one who looks like he's going to take the slack for this, certainly from the fans.
What they've also got to bear in mind is that this might sound a bit, I don't know what the word is, we just have to roll with it. It might sound a bit strange to kind of put this forward, but you've got to consider that United were actually pretty lucky with the squad they inherited when they had all those youngsters come in. You're not going to get that kind of influx of top-class youth players every season. So,
No.
whilst Fergie, he was a fantastic manager, he also had a very lucky hand in the 90s.
Of course. But young kids are being assholes these days. They're getting pregnant at 12 and failing their GCSEs. So naturally, the pool time's going to go down because they're already getting pissed and shagging about the age of 13. The love of actually playing football is going to go down because they're getting pussy all the time. So, and certainly they have to look abroad and sign players now. But the thing is, no one wants to play for Man United, it seems, right now, or whoever's in charge of getting players in, which would appear to be the director of football. He can't influence them. And how the hell can you not advertise Man United as a good prospect? And that takes on to the inflation of the transfer market. We know that Bale went for a lot of money. That was unprecedented. No one could have imagined he was going to go for that much. And transfer market, how the hell a human can go for something million is still a bit weird to me, but I'll roll with it. The fact is, within the past 2 seasons, the value of players has shot up astronomically. We talked about Ross McCormack, too fat to play 90 minutes in the Championship in the space of 3 months. £11 million. We've got players who are signed for 12 million sitting on the bench. I beg one of the 4 of you, tell me why in the past 2 seasons players' values have, I'm going to say, tripled. And someone jump in on that because I've got no answer.
Go on, Tom.
Well, basically, first, I think it's a lot to do with like the Premier League money has been increased. Like last season, we at Norwich knew a lot about increasing prices because we spent £8 million on Ricky Van Volswinkel. I think we spent something like 30 million, and like if
Who scored once.
If a club like, I don't know, Blackburn Rovers, but I think they spent something like 15 million. 15, 20 years ago on I think they spent 15 million and they were being told that they were buying the league. We spend 30 million nowadays and it's just a drop in the ocean. And you've got I think it's sort of the same money being recycled because it's one club gets 20 million, they've got to spend that 20 million, and it just sort of goes on and on and on with more clubs, especially like Southampton, for example. They've got £75 million transfer budget probably, just from the fact that they've had some okay players coming through their youth system. It's bizarre.
Well, I have no expertise on transfers in the last 3 years because last time Portsmouth actually bought a player with actual pounds sterling, actual money, which is a strange concept to us, was Eric Huseklit back in 2011, I think. Since then, it's all been freebies. Players who have gone off contracts, we've signed them after their contracts expired. We haven't bloody bought anyone for 3 years. So it's certainly not happening down where I am. And, it's non-league. You get non-contracts and amateur contracts. It's just absolutely baffling how players have shot up. Since when is Luis Suarez having 2 incredible seasons worth that amount of money, or James Rodriguez just because he had a great World Cup, or Callum Chambers? How is he worth nearly 20 million? I don't get it.
He didn't even play for a season, Chambers, before leaving for Arsenal.
Yeah, and
Luke Shaw had about 5 good games to Southampton and everybody was licking his arse and then saying he should play for England. How on earth has he got in the England squad? Like, I know we've got a shortage of left back, but surely we should have taken Ashley Cole to the World Cup. Right.
I'd like to jump in about McCormack again. What we're saying about the transfer market being inflated, and you've got to think 11 million for a Championship side is a lot of money. It's ungodly how much money that actually is. But if he scores the goals that get you promoted, and which is worth about 120 million, I think the last playoff final was worth.
Something around that, yeah.
It's what 1/10 of what you're going to earn. So teams that come down, especially with the parachute payments, like Fulham have, Norwich have, and I've even forgot who the last team to get relegated was.
Cardiff.
Yeah. If you spend that money wisely, then it becomes a drop in the ocean. 11 million, because like I say, you're going to earn 10 times more than it back. And I think more and more teams nowadays are thinking, we may as well gamble it in the hope that we're going to get the money back. Because let's say like Liverpool, for example, I know they spent they sold Suarez, but before they spent 25 million on Lallana. You think about it, that's a hell of a lot of money when
he's
Tony
26, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. And Tony Kroos went for 20 million, and I think they are just basically gambling on getting, Champions League football again, and basically recuperating the money back from what the TV revenue and all that from Champions League on Lallana.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the more controversial signings, or would-be signings, Balotelli at Liverpool. Now, let's say it's 2009. Portsmouth have played AC Milan in the Europa League. Wonderful night! And the world was a safer place and happier because it just was okay, and we weren't in League Two, and I'm going to be okay. Anyway, Mario Balotelli, a guy that we know has problems behaving himself. Now, he's done well at Milan, but are we now at the point where we call £16 million for a player who has problems behaving anyway a bargain?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
he's worth £4 million more than Shane Long, only 4. And you look at how much Suarez went for. I'm calling it a bargain.
It is a bargain. Yeah.
Well, I don't say it's, but I think that's actually probably bang on for a player like Balotelli. But then again, what are you comparing it to?
The rest of the transfer
market. If you're comparing it to Shane Long, then yeah, it is an absolute steal. But Shane Long, you've got to bear in mind, was completely ridiculous on that transfer.
You have to remember as well, Chelsea signed Diego Costa for 32 million after he had one standout season in La Liga. Mario Balotelli has probably scored at Costa's ratio for 2-3 years, and he's gone for half his price.
Balotelli has scored in over half his Milan games.
Exactly.
No,
you take 16 million compared to what everything else is going for. Is Balotelli worth £4 million more than Shane Long? Yes, no. And the rest.
Yes.
No. When you look at
hello.
last season, I saw a stat about it today. I think that he scored 7 goals in the Serie A last year, and that was from 153 shots that he had. When you compare that is an absolutely dreadful, shots to goal ratio. I don't think that
is this 7 goals without penalties? Because it's saying here that he scored 14 goals.
I'm really not sure. That's just a stat I saw. And if the stat is true, then he's not worth 60 million, especially when you take into consideration all his behaviour problems, the games he's going to miss, the games he's going to, he's just going to throw a fit in because the game ain't going his way. I think it's a really dangerous move by Liverpool because Brendan got to manage him to his maximum to get the best out of Balotelli, and it's a lot different to Suarez, who did have his problems, biting people, but he had a massive appetite for the game, whereas Balotelli seems his mood for the game changes game by game.
That's true.
I can see where you're coming from there, but when I say Balotelli is 60 million, I'm literally comparing this to the rest of the transfer market. are these players who are going for 60, 70, are they really worth, at least 3-4 times? Are they 3-4 times better than Mario Balotelli?
No.
No.
No,
Is any human being really worth 17 million?
No.
I mean, this is effectively like luxury slavery.
You do need to see him in, like actually playing in the league to think, are they a waste of money? Are they a good buy? But like I say, I do agree with you. I don't really think you can justify spending whatever James Rodriguez went for about 70 million and think, oh yeah, that's a good transfer fee. I'm sure you could get him for a lot cheaper than that.
Well, I think we've pretty much covered that one. Obviously, we've got different opinions there. And obviously, you guys are going to have your own opinion as well. But I think 60 million for Mario in a market that's only going to go up. I think that's enough for Liverpool. It does raise a question of why, because they've already signed forwards. But we'll have to talk about that another time because we are at the end of this podcast now. I'd like to thank you for listening. If you have, we might be alone in the world, but cheers anyway, and we'll be back next week with more. Thanks very much, guys.